For the first time this NBA season, welcome to The Point, a part of the Vendetta Sports Media Podcast Network. My name is Jarrod Prosser, and as always, I'm very happy to have you with us. On each episode of The Point, I'll examine a topic, a question, or an issue currently impacting the league. In this episode of The Point, we're going to turn our attention to perhaps the biggest story in the NBA at the minute, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers and their struggles since the James Harden acquisition. There are some quite obvious answers for these struggles and some not so apparent. We'll look at both. We're also going to take a look at some of the actions that the Clippers are running, what's working, and where they might be able to improve. The Clips began the season with a solid 3-2 record, though it must be said with a cupcake schedule, where the struggling Lakers and the Magic at home were the best opponents that they faced. Since making the long anticipated move for Harden, the Clips have dropped all five of their contests, though the last second loss to the reigning champion Denver Nuggets at least showed some signs of fight. The underlying team stats look okay, but they don't really tell the whole story. The Clips are still 11th in defensive rating, though they were 6th at the time of the trade. Similarly, the Clippers' offense is scoring 113.9 points per 100 possessions, good for 12th in the league, though that's dropped away sharply from 4th since the trade went down. Harden's on off numbers have been dreadful. He's a minus 70 through 5 games, which is astonishing. His best effort, a minus 3 against Denver. He was minus 18 in the 14-point loss to the Knicks, a minus 15 in the 7-point reverse to the Nets, and a minus 28 in just 28 minutes in a 4-point loss to the lowly Grizzlies. Now, I fully acknowledge the, let's call it, noisiness of on off numbers, but it does go to illustrate that the Clippers have not fared well with Harden on the floor. In that loss to Memphis, Harden into the restricted area just once and only went to the free throw line one time. Remember when he lived at the stripe and got to the cup at will? Heady days indeed. Before we get into the X's and O's, let's examine what the Clippers gave up in this trade, as that is perhaps a more significant factor in the Clippers' struggle than many are realizing. Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, Robert Covington, they're all theoretically replaceable by PJ Tucker, acquired alongside Harden. They are all, however, somewhat younger than Tucker, and whilst none have the ability to guard up and down the positional spectrum that Tucker possesses, all bar Morris, who is pretty much washed at this point, offer far more ability and, importantly, compatibility on offense. Tucker's entire offensive repertoire is sitting in the corner and shooting threes. He does hit them at a good percentage, generally in the high 30s, but there is a reason for that. He's practically naked when he shoots. He has absolutely zero gravity. Whilst Covington hasn't shot the ball really well for a few years now, all three offer a level of playmaking, Batum in particular, that Tucker simply cannot. Both Batum and Covington are also far superior off ball defenders to Tucker. Covington, especially, remains a noted ball thief and weak side shot blocker. It's no surprise that he's already stepped into the Philly starting lineup as a pinch hitter. Morris, if he can find it within his broken body, is a replicable player to Tucker in on ball defensive assignments against bigger players. Don't underestimate the loss of KJ Martin, too. The springy 22-year-old is too small to be able to defend some of the bigger players that these others could passably mark, and his jump shot remains a work in progress. But Martin gave the Clippers the jolt of adrenaline that they desperately, desperately lacked. Collectively, that quartet also gave LA much needed depth at the bigger wings position, which is where it's most important. You can simply never have too many playable threes and fours who can defend capably, keep the ball moving, and be somewhat reliable from beyond the arc. The Clippers in this trade gave up four of them to get one back, albeit alongside a star guard whose skill set doesn't necessarily naturally mesh with the other big names on the roster. And that is the other instant bugbear that came up even before this trade happened. How would Harden fit with the other three headliners on this team? The most obvious issue is Harden's fit with Russell Westbrook. Both absolutely need the ball to be most effective, and neither really play defense. Harden should, in theory anyway, be able to play off ball next to Westbrook given his shooting ability, but his bizarre reticence to shoot without first bouncing the basketball puts pay to that. Let's segue from the theory into what is going wrong on the court for the Clippers. And man, this team just looks so slow at both ends of the floor. We'll start with the defense. Ivica Zubac's form from last season to this has fallen away markedly. He's covering less ground and he's rebounding at a far worse rate than last season. Around him, Leonard is starting to look like a man for whom injuries have taken a bit of a toll, though he can still turn it on for possessions at a time when needed. Westbrook has historically been all action, little result on defense. Nothing has changed there. Harden, my apologies, has been frankly quite reasonable by his own levels, though these are James Harden defensive levels we're talking about here, so let's not get too excited. Offensively, the team looked like a crew still trying to figure each other out on the fly without a benefit without the benefit of a training camp. Ty Lue is an excellent coach, and he has a knack for creating some lovely sets for his team. Right now, though, they look like they're trying to figure each other out, and these games are almost like a regular season preseason hybrid and somewhat of a fact finding mission for the Big Four. Here's a few examples of some of the sets that Lou has drawn up that should, with a little more chemistry and timing, work well for this group. Here's a play that I've used with kids that I've coached. It allows Harden to be the playmaker whilst keeping Westbrook involved at the point. It's a great play to run with Tucker on the floor for spacing purposes instead of Zubats. Here's a similar set where a different option sees Zubac as the roll man, Westbrook still involved as the initial dive man. Look at this pick and roll. What do you notice? If Zubac is covered on the roll, Kawhi is lifting from the weak side corner and is in acres of space. Here's another play that sees Kawhi get into space. The lob off the double drag here doesn't come off, but the kick out is wide open up top. How about Harden playing away from the ball? Look at the attention Russ draws as the roller here. Harden is naked in the corner. With time, the Clippers should find some sort of rhythm on these types of sets. In the meantime, what measures can the Clippers take to improve their current plight? For starters, Harden can fully embrace the off ball elements of his new role. Come playoff time, you can bet that Lou will put the ball in Kawhi's hands more often than not. And there's a fair chance that Paul George will get more reps as the primary creator than Harden as well. That, of course, means Harden will be playing a lot more off ball. To be clear, Harden will still get his time on the ball, but it will be more balanced than at any time in Harden's post Thunder career. Harden has never been an instinctive or even willing cutter, preferring to fade towards the 3 point line than zip towards the hoop. And he is a near 40% shooter on catch and shoot threes over his career. He's just got to want to take them. In a neat little piece of synergy, Harden attempted 2.8 catch and shoot threes per game in the first 7 years of his career. That number over the next 7 seasons has halved. Harden has this infuriating habit of taking a dribble instead of going straight up with the easy shot when he's catching. That invites the defense onto him. He'll be able to use his exquisite footwork, and it is exquisite footwork, to generate space, but it's for a much more difficult, generally a sidestep shot. James, please just take the easy three when it's there. Secondly, Tyloo needs to re-engineer his starting lineup to have Westbrook running the second unit, or at the very least, alter his rotation so that he can pull Westbrook early and have him come back with the subs later on. Similarly to how the late Jerry Sloan managed John Stockton and Howard Isley, allowing his Hall of Famer to prop up some pretty weak Utah benches in the mid 90s. To that end, Lou made a significant rotational change against Denver. He paired Harden with Kawhi and Russ with Paul George whenever he went with just two of his big name players. That does make sense. PG and Russ are much more dynamic offensive players than the other two, thriving in a system where quick movement is featured. Both Harden and Kawhi, on the other hand, prefer a more methodical approach. Both players would rather spread the floor to work with a system where shooters can be easily located. And, importantly, These are the two best shooters of that star quartet. Again, assuming Harden wants to take catch and shoot threes. So those pairings should complement each other well. There is a train of thought that Harden should run the bench mob, which would allow him to be, if you'll allow me, the system, without negatively impacting PG and Kawhi. On the surface, that does make some sense, though Harden's slower pace would be a marked negative for the Clippers' primary bench scorers in Norm Powell and, should he ever get back into the rotation, Bones Highland, who both prefer a more up-tempo game. Westbrook's breakneck speed and downhill attack should suit Powell and Highland more than Harden's methodical approach. Add PG to that mix, and you've got a dynamic, if undersized, unit. So if Westbrook is now coming off the bench, then who starts? This one's easy. It's Terrence Mann. The 27-year-old has only just returned from injury at the time of recording, so Lou hasn't been forced to make a big call one way or the other at this point. But that time is coming, and quickly. Mann provides better shooting, better defense, and infinitely better off ball movement than Westbrook does. Lastly, this team needs some front court depth in the worst way. With Mason Plumlee out for at least a few months with a knee injury, surely the Clips are regretting not keeping one of the four forwards they moved to bring Harden in. Covington would sure look nice in a Clippers uniform right now, that's for sure. Now, Zubats isn't blameless for this front court issue. He's not near the levels he was performing at last season, but at the same time, he's surrounded by a pair of aging small forwards and two guards that have never been known for their stout defense. Could the Clips find a way to pry Kelly Olynyk away from Utah? Maybe, just to add to the dynamic in the locker room, Jonathan Isaac from Orlando. Daniel Tice, just signed after a buyout from the Pacers, is a pretty good start. Maybe we're burying the lead, though. Perhaps the biggest question isn't how does Harden fit with the Clippers? Maybe it's does Harden fit with any contending team? He's 34 years old in his 15th season, and unlike other aging stars, Harden has never been known for treating his body as a temple. He's still a very good ball handler and shooter, but not as good as he was in his prime. His burst and ability to finish at the rim when he gets there are well diminished from his Rockets pump. His defense, yeah, let's not talk about Harden's defense. Where Harden is still 100% elite is his vision and passing. He's a savant. He demonstrated what he could do last season, leading the league in assists for the second time in his career, but in a very different way to how he led it the first time. On an episode of The Point last season, I focused on the Sixers offense and Harden's role within it. As successful as the offense was and as Harden was within that role, he apparently chafed at that role. Remember, Harden is a system. So don't expect him to willingly ping the ball around like prime Magic Johnson now that he's in a different situation as a Clipper. For this to work, and let's be clear here, there are a lot of reasons that this Clippers team could fail. But for this to work, Harden will have to break the habits of a professional lifetime. He'll have to be far more deferential to work his tail off on defense. Good luck with that. He'll need to take the gaps that the defense gives him, that his superstar teammates can help pry open for him, rather than trying to be an individual and pry open slivers that may not be there. Can he do it? Despite the positive signs in Denver, I remain a little bit skeptical. And that will take us to the end of this edition of The Point. Please leave your comments and questions below the line, and I'll do my best to respond to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to The Point and to all of the other wonderful material Vendetta Sports Media producers. My name is Jarrod Prosser. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all again next time.